The WWE became a lot more glorious once Bobby Roode made his debut on Smackdown. However, it was a long and winding road for the man who calls himself the Glorious One before he stepped in for his first match for the Blue brand. Roode is a longtime veteran of the Squared Circle and has a successful past to go with that. While Bobby Roode is certainly hoping to make his mark in the WWE within the near future, there is much to know about the path that got Roode here in the first place. So here is wrestling origins of the Glorious One. He was born Robert Roode Jr. on May 11, 1977 in Scarborough, Ontario, a suburb of Toronto. Roode grew up in Peterborough, another suburb, where he was a friend of professional lacrosse player Tracy Koluski. After attending Kenner Collegiate Vocational Institute in his hometown, Roode decided to give wrestling a try. He was trained by his fellow Canadians Val Venus and Shane Sewell, wrestling his first match under the silly moniker of Totally Awesome in June of 1988. Roode began wrestling for a variety of Canadian indies, and for years he remained loyal to his home country. In fact, later in his career when he was wrestling in TNA, Roode also competed in BSC Pro and Border City Wrestling, two Canadian-based promotions. In addition to wrestling in Canada and Puerto Rico, Roode worked as an enhancement talent for WWE between 1998 and 2004. In addition to wrestling the occasional dark match, Roode would appear on lesser WWE shows such as Sunday Night Heat, Velocity, Jacked, and Metal. Things would change for Roode when he signed with TNA, aka Total Nonstop Action, in May of 2004. He found his way into the company thanks to Scott D'Amore, the owner of Border City Wrestling. Sticking to his roots, Roode began his run as a member of Team Canada. As a member of the Canadian stable, Roode found himself aligned with the likes of Petey Williams, Johnny Devine, and Eric Young. Roode was billed as the enforcer of the group, given that he was the most physically imposing. With his long hair and decidedly non-glorious look, Roode may appear unrecognizable to fans who have only known him for his recent run in WWE. In 2006, though, Roode would begin donning a robe, and the rest is history. As a member of Team Canada, Roode would win the NWA Tag Team titles twice alongside Eric Young. Roode would feud with the likes of Dustin Rhodes, Lance Hoyt, and Jeff Hardy during this time. The team also found themselves feuding with 3 Live Crew, a racially problematic stable consisting of BG James, aka Road Dogg, Conan, and Ron the Truth Killings. Eventually, Kip James, known as Billy Gunn to most, would turn them into 4 Live Crew, but the feud remained the same. Roode began wrestling as a singles performer more often in 2006, and the Team Canada gimmick began to run its course. After losing to Jay Lethal, Rhino, and Team 3D on a July 13th episode of Impact, Team Canada was disbanded, letting Roode move on to the next stage of his TNA run. Roode began calling himself TNA's hottest free agent, and shipped himself around to a variety of managers, including Simon Diamond, Shane Douglas, Sherry Martel, and even the late great Bobby the Brain Heenan. Roode settled on Tracy Brooks though, now known as Miss Brooks, and began calling himself Robert Roode. He took on a wealthy Wall Street investor-style gimmick and began a feud with his former Team Canada compatriot Eric Young. What followed was a comedy-heavy feud that unfortunately harkens back to the days of women being marginalized in pro wrestling. Miss Brooks would often find herself on the short end of the stick, losing a bikini contest to Young and later being tarred and feathered. Even after Roode's feud with Young ended, his character's mistreatment of women only grew and became the focal point of his gimmick. Roode and Brooks teamed up to face Booker T and his wife Sharmell in a mixed tag team match that ended with Roode threatening Brooks and then hitting Sharmell in the face. TNA decided to keep running with this whole man physically attacking women plan, but they also gave Roode a new manager in Peyton Banks. At the Destination X pay-per-view, Roode faced Booker in a Stand By Your Man strap match, which naturally was a match where the losing wrestler's manager, Banks for Roode and Brooks for Booker, would be repeatedly hit with a leather strap. Mercifully, this was effectively the end of this era of Roode's TNA run. Retaining his Wall Street-like gimmick, Roode began teaming up with James Storm, immediately beginning his feud with tag champs the Latin American Exchange. Roode and Storm would actually win their first match with LAX only to see the result overturned and LAX earning the win. Storm and Roode began calling themselves Beer Money Incorporated, a combination of Roode's wealthy trader gimmick and Storm's beer-swilling good old boy shtick. At Hard Justice in 2008, Beer Money would emerge victorious, taking the TNA World Tag titles from LAX. Beer Money would successfully defend their titles against them a few more times before moving on to other feuds. After losing the straps to Team 3D at Lockdown 2009, Beer Money would turn face, and later that year at Slammiversary, they would beat Team 3D to win the titles back once again for their third reign. In 2010, Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff took over TNA, leading to a drop in TV time for Beer Money and also another heel turn. This period of time was a convoluted mess for the often imperiled company, so long story short, eventually Beer Money would win the tag titles again and hold them for a record 212 days. Then, in 2011, Roode finally got a chance to focus on his singles career, entering a tournament for the World Heavyweight title. Roode would eventually win the tourney but lose to the champ Kurt Angle. Angle would then lose to Storm, and Roode would win a match against Samoa Joe to become the #1 contender for Storm's title. On November 3rd, Roode would win the title by hitting Storm over the head with a beer bottle, turning heel and ending Beer Money to become the World Heavyweight Champion all in one swoop. Roode would hold the championship for 256 days before dropping it to Austin Aries. In 2014, Roode became champion again when he defeated Lashley, and in 2015 he would win the King of the Mountain match. Toward the end of Roode's TNA run, Beer Money would reunite, but on March 19th of 2016, Roode would decide to part ways with TNA after 12 years. On April 1st, 2006, Roode made his first appearance on NXT, appearing in the audience at NXT TakeOver Dallas. He would make his in-ring debut for the company during a tour of the UK in June, defeating Angelo Dawkins. Roode would pretty much immediately turn heel, beginning his glorious Bobby Roode gimmick, replete with one of the most elaborate entrances in pro wrestling. In December, Roode qualified for a fatal 4-way match to be named the #1 contender for the NXT title. He would proceed to win that fatal 4-way, and at NXT TakeOver San Antonio in January of 2017, Roode would defeat Shinsuke Nakamura to become the champion. In the process, he also became the oldest champion in NXT history. Roode would go on to defend the title against Cassius Ohno, Nakamura, Hideo Itami, and Roderick Strong. Then Roode would square off with Drew McIntyre at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3. Roode would then lose the title to McIntyre and take his first loss in NXT. He would also go on to lose to Roderick Strong in his last televised match in NXT, but would end up winning his farewell match against the Velveteen Dream. Roode would pop up on the August 22nd, 2017 edition of Smackdown, beating Aiden English and turning face, perhaps owing to the fact the WWE audience would be ecstatic to see Roode make his main roster debut. After winning a couple matches, Roode would begin a feud with Dolph Ziggler, who complained about his extravagant entrance. Roode faced Ziggler in his first pay-per-view in Hell in a Cell, beating Ziggler with a roll-up. The feud continues whether people want it to or not. The Glorious One has won 8 tag team titles in TNA, 2 TNA World Heavyweight Championships, and the NXT title to this point. The 40-year-old Roode took a long time to finally get to the WWE, but he's here now, ready to hit the glorious DDT on all of those in his way. Outside the ring, Roode has been married to his wife Tracy since '95, and the two have 3 sons. Roode has a ton of ring experience and one of the catchiest, most fun theme songs in the history of not only WWE, but professional wrestling. Not bad for a Canadian boy who began his career as totally awesome. I hope you are all having an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching Wrestling Hub, and I will see you later with more wrestling videos.